If you are a lover of affirmations or you've just heard about how powerful they can be, then you are going to love the Daily Affirmations for Women podcast, created by the Women's Meditation Network and hosted by the amazing Jody Agard. Every morning, you'll receive an episode that is dedicated to one specific affirmation, so you can have the space to reflect on it and receive the power within it. Follow and start listening now to the Daily Affirmations for Women podcast on your favorite podcast player.
This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 2453. How Kicking My Soda Habit is Fueling My Retirement by Chris of KeepThrifty.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. We're going to get right to today's post as we optimize your life. How Kicking My Soda Habit is Fueling My Retirement by Chris of KeepThrifty.com. I used to love Diet Mountain Dew. That might not even be a strong enough statement. I was pretty much addicted to it. It was my source of caffeine and one of those self-indulgent treats I convinced myself I needed. I was drinking at least a bottle, 20 ounces, a day for a number of years, and at times I was going through more. Back in the summer of 2014, my wife challenged me to an experiment to see if I could go our whole road trip, 10 days, without drinking any. As a replacement, my wife offered up coffee, which has never suited my taste, but I knew the health benefits were there, and I love a good challenge, so I took her up on it. Surprisingly, the transition wasn't as tough as I had thought, and while I had a bit between the end of the road trip and late 2014, I'm proud to say that I haven't had any in well over a year and don't see going back. While the health benefits are reason enough on their own, this is a personal finance blog, so let's talk about the surprisingly big financial impact this little change had. Basic numbers. At my worst, I was drinking more than a bottle a day, but let's be conservative and go with one a day. At $1.50 each, that's $550 a year. As a replacement, we bought a grinder and a French press, and we buy our coffee beans in bulk from the grocery store. We get the good stuff, so we pay $10.96 a pound. With 100 tablespoons per pound and 4 tablespoons per cup, we like it strong. That gives us a cost of about 44 cents a cup for what I drink at home. At work, we have a community coffee machine that pumps out medium-strength Folgers all day long. While not my favorite, it does the trick, and the cost is a lot less. A 3-pound tub is about $15, which translates to 15 cents a cup for work. I drink about 1 cup a day when I'm home and closer to 3 a day when I'm at work, so I average 45 cents a day for my caffeine intake now. For current prices, I only spend $160 a year on coffee instead of $550 a year on soda, and get the health benefits of not putting toxic chemicals in my body. From here, let's take a look at both the impact on how much I save between now and retirement by switching, as well as the impact on how much I need to accumulate in my retirement account to fund my caffeine intake. Impact on amount needed to retire. Most financial aficionados will tell you to follow the 4% rule to determine your target for how much to have in your retirement accounts to allow you to retire. If you're not familiar, take 4% of the number in your retirement account. If you can live for the next year spending that amount, you probably don't need this blog. There's a good chance you could go retire right now. Determining savings needed from expenses. To work from expenses to the amount needed in your account for retirement, you just reverse it. Take your expected annual expenses at retirement and multiply that number by 25, the equivalent of dividing by 4%. That tells you how much you need in your retirement account in order to retire with a good level of confidence that your expenses will be covered for the long haul if you just take out 4% of the balance of your account each year. The beauty of the 4% rule is that you can apply it to groups of expenses to calculate the retirement savings burden of each guilty pleasure you want to continue. Soda retirement burden versus coffee retirement burden. If I want to cover my soda habit in retirement at age 65, I need 25 times the annual expense of my soda habit in my account when I retire. Based on expected inflation, 3%, bringing it to $1,400 a year, That's just over $35,000 I need in retirement savings just to cover soda. With coffee instead, inflation gets us up to $420 a year, which means I only need $10,000 in savings to cover coffee. All told, switching to coffee drops the amount I need in my savings to retire by the difference between these two, which is $25,000. In other words, by switching from soda to coffee, I reduce the amount I need to save for retirement by $25,000. We can't stop here. We've only figured out one of the two benefits of the switch. And get this, that was the smaller number. Impact on savings. On the flip side, let's look at what we can do with the money we save between now and retirement by switching. Again, I'd be spending about $1,400 a year on soda by the time I would hit normal retirement age at 65. Instead, by switching to coffee and investing the difference every year in retirement savings, assume an investment account at 8% return. I'd have an extra $77,000 in my retirement account by age 65. No, that wasn't a typo. That's a 7, then another 7, and then 3 zeros. That's the beauty of compound interest, my friends. Putting in a few $100s a year over 33 years gets you a pretty healthy chunk of change at the end. All together now. So at age 65, I have an extra $77,000 in my retirement account, and I need $25,000 less than I would have if I were a lifelong soda drinker. That's a savings swing of $102,000 at retirement just by switching from soda to coffee in my early 30s. This is the crazy, powerful math you get when you put interest and long timelines together. Small changes get you big numbers. Let me put it back in perspective. By spending about $30 less per month on my caffeine habit and being smart with that savings, I can have a $102,000 benefit at retirement. I'd consider getting one of those big novelty checks you see at golf tournaments, but we're pretty minimalist, and I don't think banks actually take those, do they? What's in your cup? If a $30 per month reduction now can benefit $102,000 at retirement, what would happen from whittling down expenses by $100, $200, or $500 a month? This post isn't really about soda. It's about the big power of small changes in your financial habits. Knowing what kind of impact small changes can have on long-term finances, here's the question for you. What is one reoccurring expense that you could really live without? You just listened to the post titled, How Kicking My Soda Habit is Fueling My Retirement by Chris of KeepThrifty.com.
This episode is brought to you by Google. The Google Cybersecurity Certificate provides the necessary skills to begin a career in cybersecurity. Visit safety.google/cyber workforce today.
Labor strikes, climate change, your failing office printer. What do they all have in common? Come on, it's all about the money. Economics is everywhere and everything fueling our lives. If you're a fan of Optimal Finance Daily and are curious to learn something new and exciting about economics every week, check out the Planet Money podcast from NPR. Planet Money is a different kind of world where the complex economy actually makes sense. Credit scores may sound complex, but Planet Money can give you simple tips so that you can make better financial decisions. A famous baseball player isn't just good at baseball. He also knows how to be a better investor. The topics are virtually endless, and you'll get answers to questions like, will AI take over our jobs? Or is fancy vodka just fancy marketing? The Planet Money team lives to tell a good story in around 30 minutes. Tune in to Planet Money every week for entertaining stories and insights about how money shapes our world. Listen now to Planet Money from NPR, wherever you get your podcasts. This article reminded me how self-imposed restriction or experimentation can help us learn about our own unique preferences and help us question the status quo. When you're forced to make cost-effective changes because you've maxed out your credit cards and simply don't have the funds to make ends meet, I can see how that would feel like deprivation. But I think when you willingly experiment with frugality and use it as a way to test your assumptions about what you need and don't need, it can be a very freeing experience. The key here is choice. experiment with frugality on your own terms, and you're more likely to not find yourself in a position where it's forced on you. I also think reframing the concept can change your relationship to it. So rather than thinking of myself as frugal, I like to think of myself as resourceful. The key here is to watch out for feelings of deprivation. Chris didn't seem to miss his soda habit at all, so that makes it much easier for him to enjoy his coffee as well as all the money he's saving. That should do it for another edition of Optimal Finance Daily. I'll be back tomorrow as usual, so I'll see you there on the Wednesday show, where your optimal life awaits.